How does Amari Cooper's unknown status affect his ADP? What NFC tight end is in line for a massive bounce back in 2022? And is Joe Mixon being underdrafted at the second round turn? Plus, the 2021-2022 FFPC Playoff Challenge Divisional Round $100,000 grand prize winner Craig Campbell joins us live to talk about how he constructed his juggernaut, the conundrum that is the San Francisco 49ers backfield, Saquon Barkley's polarizing ADP, and much, much more. We've got a great show for you. Farrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I, of course, am your host, Eric Balkman, the one, the only, the somewhat comparable Eric Balkman. Greetings and salutations to all the Balkaholics and Ferelliacs tuning in live here on YouTube, listening around the world. We appreciate that. Watching around the world. I got to get used to saying watching rather than listening. It is indeed the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. It's presented by myffpc.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is indeed the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Farrell Elliott. There he is. Farrell, welcome in, man. How's your Friday going?
Oh, it is going well, Balky. This week has been an interesting one of tearing up the road between here in Nashville and here in Indianapolis. And I'm so glad to be in my home and sitting here speaking with you tonight.
So how did your combine go? Like what days were you there? Are you going back there at all?
I'm going back tomorrow morning, and I've been in and out. I was there a little bit Wednesday and for a moment on Thursday. Did not go today. It's going very well. See some old friends. It's becoming more of a convention and an exchange of ideas, and just a reuniting amongst people in the business and those that are between jobs and looking to get back in. And yeah, it was a good trip. And of course, Indianapolis this time was not in the 15 to 25 degree mark with 30-mile-an-hour winds. It was very temperate, and so that made for a nice week.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear you're going back, and maybe we'll get some inside information, and we'll get to a little bit of dynasty talk tonight. We'll probably get to some dynasty stuff going forward here in the next month as well. Specifically coming up on tonight's show, we're going to analyze the latest news in Dallas about Michael Gallup and where he should be targeting Odell Beckham, if at all, in your never too early best ball tournament and KFFSC drafts, plus the $100,000 winner in the 2021-2022 FFPC Divisional Round Challenge. Craig Campbell is going to drop by for some discussions involving T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, and Cortland Sutton, and much more. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, the show is at HSFFR. I'm at Eric Balkman. Farrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship is at KFFSC.com, KFFSC on Twitter, at JFarrellElliott on Twitter, Facebook.com/HSFFR is where to reach us. And if you want to give us an email, shoot it to us at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, all the emails and tweets coming up later on in the fantasy feedback portion of the show, thanks to my best friend and audio engineer, Bryce, and our producer and mutual friend, Rob. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to remind you that dozens of Dynasty Orphans have been posted at myffpc.com/dynasty for sale. If you're looking to have a 365-day fantasy football challenge, those start at $77 and going up. In fact, some of them have been discounted all the way down to $1. So you can get in on the bottom floor and resurrect the Dynasty team all the way to the top at bargain basement prices. Register for the inaugural Never Too Early FFPC Best Ball Tournament. Win $1 million in the 2022 FFPC main event. That's at myffpc.com. And then, of course, the segmented closed 12-team leagues, all available at myffpc.com. It's sit and goes, lives and slows. Not only is the Draft Master available at KFFSC, not only can you join the KFFSC main event there, the Combine Classic, Farrell, the Run to Daylight Championship, now available at KFFSC.com.
It's off and running with a $5,000 grand prize, which adds up pretty nice to our main event, $25,000 grand prize this year, Balky. A big jump in that prize. But our 96-team league, the Run to Daylight Championship, now in its third year, waiting for players. Will be getting started in that early April.
Yeah, I was going to look. I looked. So, yeah, you got the Combine Classic going on. Not this Sunday, but a week from this Sunday. And then the Run to Daylight kicks off April 16th. So this will be very exciting. So, and I'm looking at some of those spots already filling up. So make sure you're getting in at KFFSC.com. Farrell, I know we were going to lead off with the Cowboys tonight, but some stuff I saw from Ian Rappaport just before he went on the air in regards to Aaron Rodgers, going back and forth, apparently, whether he wants to play for the Packers, whether he wants to play for a different team, whether he wants to simply hang it up and retire. Do you have any insight into this? Have you changed? I mean, because I've sort of been like the whole time, I thought he was coming back to Green Bay. But the fact that we're this late in the game and he's still hemming and hawing, what do you make of this? Can we read something into this? Or is it just best to let sleeping dogs lie and sort of ignore this for right now?
This is a story that weaves in and out of every conversation in Indianapolis. And early on, Balky, you and I talked about other places he could play. I settled on Denver. I still think it's a likelihood that if he plays anywhere else, that it will be Denver. And what it does for us in fantasy football, when you begin to imagine Aaron Rodgers under quarterback and the Denver Broncos in that division with those receivers and the young running back, plus the veteran running back Gordon, who may be a free agent but hasn't left yet, the fantasy implications are fantastic. So if he plays for another club, and I know it would break your heart if that would happen, they announced in the media that he was torn. So Aaron is torn, and he always knows when to drop something at the height of its newsworthiness. So here on Friday night at the Combine, that is the report that he is torn. And I think it would break a lot of hearts there in Wisconsin and around the football world. But if he leaves, I think it's for the Rocky Mountain State.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is a two-team race. If number one, I do still think he is going to be coming back to Green Bay. I would, if I was drafting right now, which I have. I actually drafted last week in Kentucky. I would be drafting Packers based on Aaron Rodgers coming back, because I still think that is the most likely scenario. And I'd be drafting Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. We're going to talk about Cortland Sutton here in a little bit. But I'd be drafting all those Broncos based on Aaron Rodgers not being there. That's the way I hear it right now. That's the way I feel about it right now. As always, I reserve the right to change my mind. Dallas Morning News Report had the belief is that impending free agent Michael Gallup is going to re-sign with the Dallas Cowboys. Apparently, these are mutual feelings between Gallup, his representation, and Dallas. And it sounds like Dallas might be ready to cut or at least try to trade Amari Cooper before they cut him. Now, Michael Gallup tore his ACL last year, but it sounds like he still could play a good portion of the season. And we should know, I would imagine, within the next couple of weeks here, where, Michael Gallup is, what his role is going to be in that offense, whether he's going to be number 3, whether he's going to be number 2, or what have you behind CeeDee Lamb. Currently, in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, he has an ADP, which shout out to Darren Armani, fantasymojo.com, at FantasyMojo on Twitter, who gives us all this ADP. Wide receiver 55, Farrell, at the 1302. Massive bargain, in my opinion, right now. Massive, massive bargain.
A huge bargain Michael Gallup is, even at that point. When Michael Gallup played a full season, the magic of the last year, he played a full season. He's looking at 59 catches, over 1,000 yards. What he can do as a developing receiver in that offense, especially if you remove Cooper from it, it's a fantastic opportunity for fantasy players to get a receiver that his best football, we haven't even began to see it yet.
We have not. Sorry about that. I was communicating with the YouTube chat room right now. I'm talking about what Charles Barkley said about Aaron Rodgers. I won't post it in there, but I'll just say Charles Barkley said that Aaron Rodgers is sort of like the pretty girlfriend, right? That needs to be told that she's so pretty. Yeah. Not 4 days a week, not 5 days a week, every single day of the week. Farrell, you've dated girls like that. I know I have as well. You haven't? You've never dated a girl like that?
I wouldn't know anything about that, Bob.
Keep it on back from girlfriends back to Dallas here. Dallas Morning News again. This is we're going to get into the Amari Cooper thing now.
Oh, okay.
At the NFL Combine, it would be an upset, according to several sources. This is the Dallas Morning News Report. If Amari Cooper is actually going to be a Cowboy in 2022, Michael Gelkin had this report. Gelkin, no stranger to the NFL. He knows who to talk to. He knows what's real information, and he knows how to, who to talk to get that information. But what we do know of this publicly is this: Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones publicly have said on radio airwaves in Dallas that they were less than thrilled with Amari Cooper's finish to the season last year. Obviously, him being unvaccinated, causing him to miss a game, that rubs some people, not everybody in the Dallas organization, the wrong way. He complained about his role in the offense. He has a $20 million salary that becomes fully guaranteed if he's on the roster coming up on March 20th. Now, they could rework that, or they could just say, to heck with it, we're moving on, and they're going to release him, or they could try to trade him as well. The fact that this report is coming out the same time that the Michael Gallup report is, it seems like the Cowboys have made their choice. They're choosing Gallup coming off the torn ACL over Amari Cooper, who they weren't thrilled with how he finished last season. Now, here's why I bring this up. Amari Cooper was a draft choice that I made in the KFFSC Super Sunday Championship last Sunday. I think it was like my number 2 or number 3 receiver. I can't remember offhand, but I remember I felt pretty good about the value there. And the way I looked at it, and right now, by the way, if you look at the number 2 early best ball ADP, he is going currently at, I apologize, I just had it here. Oh yeah, wide receiver 21 at the 502. Now, when I took him, I was of the belief that he probably will be in Dallas, but I still was comfortable with it because I thought even if Dallas cut him or trade him, he was going to go to a situation that a team that would value him and want to use him and be willing to pay either the salary he's making now or take a chance on him, sign him to a long-term extension and make him a focal point of their offense. So for me, this report, it's interesting for Gallup. I think less interesting for Cooper because I still think he is going to have a pretty good season no matter where he plays.
I agree, Balky. And it's a very cleverly negotiated contract. It's a situation where he can join the free agency pool if everything isn't to his liking in Dallas. And it's a mutual separation amongst the front office and the player, I believe. Cooper then would supplant most of the free agent wide receivers at the top, and who amongst the list is bigger now, but once the franchise tags and the renegotiations are applied, we're now looking at Christian Kirk and Juju Smith-Schuster, and Amari Cooper becomes the number 1 free agent wide receiver when you consider him there. He's only turning 28 this summer. A lot of good football in front of Amari Cooper, and Dallas may not be happy with the way he played down the stretch, but I saw a consistent Amari Cooper with what we've seen for years, and there's probably greener pastures for him in the world of fantasy. Your selection you made in the KFFSC over Super Bowl weekend will prove to be a good one, Balky.
Oh, I love getting the commish stamp of approval. It's what it's all about for me. So I'm thrilled to hear that for sure. We drafted more Amari Cooper shares this year. We talked about Michael Gallup coming off the ACL. Another receiver that is coming off a torn ACL. This one in the Super Bowl is Odell Beckham. Now, Ian Rappaport reported that he is expected to, quote, be ready and able to play at the beginning of November. Now, it's all fine and dandy to say that now, but I guarantee you, well, I shouldn't say guarantee. I have a feeling as we get closer to mid-October, late October, and we're talking about Beckham, I have a feeling that timeline could be pushed back, which makes me a little bit hesitant to draft Beckham. Now, he's a free agent, so we don't even know if he's going to be back in Los Angeles. You read the tea leaves, it seems like the Rams want him back. Beckham wants to be back in Los Angeles. He actually turns 30 years old in November. Crazy to think about that he's going to be 30 this year. But if you're drafting him in the number 2 early best ball, if you're drafting him in the KFFSC, you're obviously not drafting him for the start of the season. You're drafting him for what he can do in the second half of the season. Even though he was great in Los Angeles, I remain a little bit less convinced of what kind of a weapon he could be when he's missing this much time in the regular season and he's coming off the ACL. Now, if we look at the ADP right now, for Odell Beckham, I was actually really surprised when I saw this a couple of weeks ago. I was surprised how high he was going, and I guess it makes sense if he does come back in November. Wide receiver 45 at the 10:04, which is where he's going right now. I guess I can see it, but just because I see it doesn't mean I have to get on board with it, and I'm not on board with that ADP, Farrell.
Neither am I. However, in a recent FFPC draft that I'm involved in, he went as late as the 16th or 17th that I was considering nabbing him on the turn, and the guy got him a couple picks in front of me. He is a fantastic later round draft pick for best ball for managed leagues. He should most likely remain on the waiver wire and be a player that you can pay the money for with your fab budget as the season moves on. However, if you think you can afford it, he's a great stash for the end of the season. But you know what? Those early weeks, those 12 regular season weeks in the FFPC managed leagues and the main event, they go by quickly. And I don't want to play against the good players in the FFPC with 19 versus 20.
It's a great point. Totally on board with that. The chat room heating up here. Dave the Dizzle Gerzak, who is a notorious Beckham, I wouldn't say he's a Beckham hater. He's never liked Beckham.
That would be a Beckham hater there. Bob.
Well, I don't want it. It's not a hater.
He's not a hater. Dave's not that kind.
Maybe he would classify himself as a hater. I don't want to put that moniker on him without him saying that. But he said Beckham's had like 2 good years. And then, of course, the non-sheeple rankings from @2Packer on Twitter. Ron Meyer chiming in that he is a sexy pick in round 15. He is a stone pick any higher. So Ron Meyer likes him in the 15th, not in the 10th. You're not going to get him in the 15th right now. So I guess it's a bunch of stones picking him before that. All right. We have Craig Campbell, the $100,000 winner in the FFPC Divisional Playoff Challenge, coming up in 1 minute. The last thing I want to get to before we get to him, Matt Barrows, who covers the San Francisco 49ers for The Athletic, had a George Kittle report. And in it, he said that Kittle, quote, never truly got over the calf issue he had this past year. Weeks 5 through 8, George Kittle was out with a calf injury. And when he came back, had some really good games. He had some real clunkers in there as well. Now, when we look at what he did down the stretch, it wasn't that great, even in the playoffs. Barrows says in this piece on The Athletic, Kittle was laboring at times, especially at the end of the playoff game in Green Bay. When you have looked at George Kittle in the FFPC, obviously you want to get an elite tight end early. What's been the big knock on George Kittle? Not necessarily that he doesn't have a great quarterback, because he's always played through that. Not necessarily that he can't get it done after the catch, because he always does that. Not that he doesn't have bad hands. He catches the ball. It's been injuries. And as Farrell will tell you, the best ability in the NFL is availability. Now, he's going to be 29. Could be Trey Lance, could be Tom Brady throwing him the ball next year, or Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, I don't know. It could be him as well. But Farrell, I kind of look at this right now. George Kittle, tight end 5 at the 303 in the FFPC. I think that's kind of a deal right now. And hearing this report about the calf injury, I think if I was drafting in the FFPC, I'd be a little bit more willing to take him as my number 1 tight end in the early 3rd round.
Sure, I would. If once Andrews has gone off the board, it's Kittle territory. And I think that the player, we talked about his responsibilities as a complete football player. We've done enough of that. His situation is he'll have an off season to get himself together. He takes care of himself better than most players in the NFL. He'll return. He is for the guys a little long in the tooth out there, he is the John Wayne of the National Football League. His respect from everybody, players, coaches, fans. Kittle is the kind of guy that you want to have in the locker room, that you want to have on the field. He leads by example. If he can get on the field, he'll do it. And if he can get on the field, chances are he's going to produce well enough for you to do very, very well in the FFPC, where you get the 1.5 points per tight end receptions. Do not sleep or hesitate on Kittle based on what you saw in 2021. 2022 is a new year for a physical machine at the tight end position.
This is, and when my KFFSC auction bidding partner, Kurt Awe sees this, or hears this, sees it, this will be all the ammo he needs. We're going to be bidding heavily once again for like the umpteenth straight year on George Kittle and the KFFSC. Speaking of the KFFSC, we do have a KFFSC player, part of KFFC royalty, if you will.
Yes.
He's tonight's guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen. He's been playing high-stakes fantasy football since 2007, primarily in the FFPC and KFFSC, won multiple league titles in the main event in the FFPC and the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, the Terminator FFPC Dynasty Football Guys Players Championship. He got his biggest win of his high-stakes career when he took down the 2021-2022 FFPC Divisional Round Playoff Challenge and the $100,000 that goes with it. Please welcome back onto the show. You follow him at @CCampbellFF on Twitter. It is the one, the only, the incomparable Craig Campbell, ladies and gentlemen. $100,000 winner. Congrats on the big win. Welcome to the show, buddy.
I don't think he can hear us.
We don't have audio for Craig. It's so funny because no, hold on. Maybe I have him muted. Maybe I'm no.
There you go, Bucky. Get him in there.
No, I don't. I think we good now. Their
Testing
mic is.
Craig.
Hold on, Craig. It says your mic is not connected. Are we good now?
Connect that mic, Craig.
No.
Connect that mic.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if we can get it back. Craig. Okay, hold on. We're going to try to get Craig back. Technical difficulties.
Can we send Justin McCord over to his place?
Exactly. How close is Justin?
Yeah, Justin can get there. You know, he's Superman with these type things.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's see if I can get him back right now.
There he is again.
Craig, do we got you now? No, nothing. I don't know what is going on. And again, I'm still learning this system as well, but it shows it's unmuted. Let's see if I can mute it and unmute it. No, nothing.
It could be on Craig's end. He might have to unmute it himself.
Hold on. Yeah. All right. We're gonna work on this, and we'll see what I can do here.
You work on it a minute, and I'll tell everyone who's seen the handsome Craig Campbell join the show, and it's very impressive now that we've gone on video, Bucky. That we're bringing all the handsome guys on the show. It's a good move. But Craig Campbell has been a consistent winner in the KFFSC and the FFPC, and he's somewhat of a legendary player in our league. Our mutual friend Bobby Butterfield once complained that he ended up in too many Craig Campbell leagues, and
I'd be complaining about that as well. For sure.
It finally, he started counting them off, and he would come up and he would just hold up 3 fingers. And I knew what he was talking about. And he'd point over there at Campbell's seat. And then Sunday rolls around, he comes over and he's doing this. And, it makes it for a lot of fun. But, yeah, Craig is a worthy opponent that no one wants at their table.
All right, Craig, if you can hear us, try to close out and reconnect. I'm running out of ideas here. I'm trying everything I can, and my apologies, but I cannot get Craig going here tonight. So Craig, if you can, try to close out the stream, log back in, just check your audio settings, make sure everything is good with your microphone and your speakers, and then we'll see if we can get Craig back on as well.
Bulky, if worse
who's
comes
been on this show before, by the way.
If worse comes to worse, he can always try it connecting through his phone.
I believe so. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Craig, if you can do that too, that would be good. Craig was actually on this show. I was looking back on it about 6.5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, and
that gotta have you back more often than that.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and look, but I think he's done the Road of his High Stakes Lowdown with me as well. Which, by the way, you can check out a new episode of that. We did a video version of that with Todd Burrows at Best Ball NFL. That's on the FFPC YouTube page, and of course, anywhere you get your Road of his podcast as well. We're going to connect back with Craig here. Craig, can we get a mic check from you?
Oh,
no, nothing. Craig, see if you can connect with your phone, and we'll see if that works. I'm going to do my best here to get Craig on as soon as we can get him connected online, because we do have to figure out how he built this team. I'm always amazed when we have these playoff challenges, and we've had some ties before, but I'm always amazed at how many
variations,
$100,000, $500,000 we can give away, and there aren't. There's one winner.
One clear winner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think he submitted 5 in this year's competition, and one obviously ended up winning. So we'll get into that. We'll get into a lot of stuff. And Craig's an avid dynasty player as well. In fact, I think he's in a couple of my Kentucky fantasy football dynasty leagues as well. And we'll get his thoughts on some dynasty talk as well. While we are getting Craig connected, Farrell, let's hit up an email right away from John in Howard, Colorado. And he writes, can you help me out here? Who's the better tight end, Pat Freiermuth or Dalton Schultz? And I can't remember. I don't think we've had this question before, but I know we've talked a little bit about Freiermuth and Schultz. Freiermuth, obviously the second-year tight end. We don't exactly know who his quarterback's going to be. Right. Dalton Schultz, the free agent, but it sounds like Dallas wants him back as well. They're roughly going in the same spot in the Never Too Early best ball tournament right now. Tight end 10, tight end 12. In the middle of the 8th round. Do you have a feeling on whether you'd rather get Freiermuth or Schultz?
If you're savvy and on either end, you can get them both, and you'll need them both in a best ball. But taking a look at the two players, Balky, I think you summed it up. Is we know who the quarterback's going to be in Dallas. We also know that most likely this player will play under the franchise tag. Elite tight ends, like we were just talking about Kittle, there's a $15 million a year player. The tag will come in at around 10 or 11 for Dalton Schultz, and they'll continue to negotiate through that tag. And Schultz just seems to consistently get better. And we just talked about Amari Cooper leaving the club, and I would also add to the fact that the receiver core, if anyone has been watching the combine and watching the performances, you can see that this rookie receiver class is the best in years, and they all look ready to play. They look ready to get on the field, have elite speed, make the catches, and they're very, very polished wide receivers. So perhaps one of those could join the Dallas mix. Dalton Schultz would become even more relied on. There's a lot of conversation out of Pittsburgh that Willis, the quarterback from Liberty, could be a target of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really like that player, but will most likely be a young quarterback in Pittsburgh. All young quarterbacks, their best friends are the tight end. Pat Freiermuth goes into his sophomore season. I expect continued growth as a player and bigger numbers than his 60 receptions last year, and some good share of red zone targets. So both these players are players that you could live with through the main event in the FFPC and do very, very well. In best ball, it would be a wonderful strategy to get both of them, because I think you're going to need it, especially with the dual flex. I like heavy tight ends, and these are heavy tight ends in the 7th and 8th round. And I think you'll get more than your money's worth and more than your draft investment with these players.
Yeah, you actually could. You could probably get Schultz in the 7th and then go right back in the early 8th with Pat Freiermuth if you wanted to do that, and especially if you wait on tight end, right? And to get one or two of those guys. Who do you think has the higher ceiling, Farrell? Does one of them have a significantly higher ceiling than the other?
Because of the quarterback. Because of the quarterback in Dallas, the ceiling is higher with Schultz. However, Freiermuth, when we get down to the red zone, the spectrum may shift a little bit, and we can point to Freiermuth because he seems to have a really good penchant at getting open in this offense. And I don't know how much the Pittsburgh offense is going to change, but it's going to look very, very different with the kind of quarterback they have. It's not going to be a new system, a new quarterback, and the way he looks in that system.
The chat room, Dizzle is saying that redraft probably Dalton Schultz. He also wants to know another question from the chat room. Do Kenny Pickett's 4.5-inch hands concern you, Farrell?
Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's a very good ball player. The hand size matters when you're playing outside in the cold and in the wet. So if he's playing for the New Orleans Saints and playing in a Southern division, I don't particularly have any problems with it. He wouldn't be a good quarterback just from the hand aspect alone in the Northeast or in Green Bay. These quarterbacks, they're going to rise to the test of what will make an NFL quarterback. I like some of them more than others in this group. And one that has been injured that we're not seeing, Matt Corral, I probably like him a little more than others. I like him a little better than Pickett. It's going to be fascinating to see how these quarterbacks move through this draft process and given the opportunity to play. Balky, last year when we looked at Wilson for the New York Jets, here's a player that threw 9 touchdowns and 11 picks on the same year, or in his first season. They won't allow that kind of ratio and that kind of lack of production for some of the quarterbacks that are in the draft this year. So if Pickett's going to play in this league, when he gets his opportunity, he's going to have to bring it.
It's weird because I do view him as a first round pick. He's going to go in the first round.
Yes.
And then the question to me is, well, okay, how good can he be from a fantasy standpoint? Because, we don't talk about quarterbacks on this show a whole lot, but for Superflex, he will be important, especially for the Dynasty Superflex leagues. He is going to be a high draft pick. Every time I think of Kenny Pickett, I think of the fake slide that he did at Pittsburgh. Anyway, and that's something we'll probably talk about again. Speaking of Dynasty, Dizzle wants to know, what are our thoughts on Breece Hall, who crushed the 40-yard dash and the jumps at the combine. You know, the jumps are kind of underrated, and I think the broad jump is something that we should probably be paying a little bit more attention to, maybe a less attention to the 40. 4.39 40-inch vertical leap, and then a 10.6 broad jump. This is a guy who I think was already sort of the consensus number one rookie running back for fantasy football, and he's just cementing his status in there at this point right now.
If this player played at a marquee SEC school, he would already be going in the first and second round of fantasy drafts. And, you know, the Dizzle was one when his group came to Kentucky and drafted. They spent a lot of time with rookie players, and it's a good group to invest draft picks in rookie players. Hall is a significant buy right now. It will be determined as to what team he goes to. You think about this running back for the New York Giants, and you cringe a little bit. And then you think about the Atlanta Falcons, and you say, man, could he join that team and what he could get done on that fast turf. So, you know, landing spot and geography is very, very important for all running backs, but this guy should be successful wherever it is.
Yeah, absolutely, he will. And he is the running back 22 right now in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. At the 5-12, so the end of the 5th round is where he is going. That is after he's kind of by himself a little bit. I mean, Travis Etienne gets drafted at the 505 on average. Another guy we didn't really get to see last year at all. And then after that, we have a question about both these guys coming up later on in the program. Maybe we'll get to it right now, actually, since it's a nice flow that way. Leonard Fournette and Michael Carter, running back 23 and running back 24. I'm going to try Craig Campbell one more time. I think we might have these audio issues and video issues. We're going to try. Please welcome in the $100,000 winner in the FFPC Divisional Round Playoff Challenge, Craig Campbell. Craig, welcome in, buddy.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
There he is.
Sorry, that was probably my fault. That was probably my computer. So my apologies.
Don't worry about it. A $100,000 heir should never have to apologize on this program. I realized this when probably a couple hours before we went to air. I am outnumbered now on the show. It's 2 Louisville guys and then a Northeast Wisconsin guy. So repping Louisville, Kentucky tonight hard are Farrell Elliott and Craig Campbell. I wanted to look at some potential U of L guys that could be drafted this year. And this is not a dig. I couldn't find any fantasy worthy ones. So would have been better to have you on pre-Lamar Jackson, pre-Devontae Parker, what have you. We'll blow past that. Craig, number one. Congratulations. This is awesome to have you on. 5 lineups in the competition. I brought this up before. When you were building these multiple lineups with only 8 players, in a starting lineup in the divisional challenge, how did you choose which players to put where? And ultimately, how did you craft the one that ended up winning the 100K?
Yeah. So I guess kind of a multiple step process here. So really went through the player pool and just kind of through each team and just figured out, who are actually the playable players I'm not trying to get too cute with going way off the board here, just narrowing down to only the guys that, are the highest projected players. So for example, from Tennessee, only going to play Derrick Henry or AJ Brown, not going to go way off the board and play Julio or something like that. Secondly, so that already narrows the player pool down quite a bit with there only being 8 teams. Next, just going to calculating some ownership projections, and that was really easy just from using the Fantasy Mojo site. So really wanted for each team to have a mix of some lower owned guys and also some chalky guys, just to kind of get some differentiation to hopefully get a unique lineup. So for this specific lineup, it really just came down to, having that mix of lower owned guys and chalk and some chalk in there, and also going through like the playoff bracket in each game to kind of pick the team. So for this specific team, really just started, went through the game, started with that Green Bay San Francisco game. And for this game, really just said, okay, well, I'm going to play a scenario where San Fran is going to win this. So in that scenario, I said, in a one game scenario, Aaron Jones can very easily outscore Javonte at a lower projected ownership. So went with him. And then on the flip side, went with Debo, just saying, for multiple games, Debo's probably going to be the top scoring 49er. So pencil both of those guys in. Similar thing for the Tampa Bay, LA game. Played chalk Cooper Cup, just ate the chalk there with, just thinking that they were going to win that game. And then got a little bit different with Fournette not playing, the previous week, getting him at a lower ownership than both Evans and Gronk coming in, higher than them in the contest. And then going to the, I guess the KC Buffalo game, Kelsey was really the only tight end left I could really play out of the ones that are playable with already, having picked a Tampa Bay player and a San Fran player. So went with him, went with Josh Allen at QB because, there really weren't any other QBs in the Tennessee-Cincinnati game I wanted to play. So that kind of was, a no-brainer there. So that just left me with with 2 flex spots to fill from that from the Tennessee-Cincinnati game. And I wanted to really focus on the wide receivers and only play 2 running backs. So, went with AJ Brown over Henry for my Tennessee player. And then, it was really a decision between Higgins and Chase for the Cincinnati player. But, Higgins coming in, coming off that really, really bad game in the wild card round, thought I could get him, at a much lower ownership. So decided, to pull the trigger on him. And I guess it all worked out.
Fantastic, Craig. A very logical process that you outlined there. Much better than my blind ass guess of pick and choose. So obviously I can understand why you're successful at this. And, this harkens back to my modest days that I spent in law school training is don't ask a question that you know the answer to. I know the answer to this question. Where did you spend Super Bowl Sunday? And tell us a little bit about it, how you rode the huge win out. I think I could answer this question for you, but I would rather hear it from you.
Yep. Yeah. Well, first, shout out to you, Farrell. I was actually out at the Caesars earlier that day drafting in the KFFFC. So that was a great time. But I honestly watched the game at home with my wife, who's a pretty big Cincinnati Bengals fan. And my 2-year-old daughter was also there witnessing this. So yeah, I guess get the listeners in on what the situation was. I basically just needed Higgins to outscore both Chase and Mixon. We were pretty much the other teams had Chase and Mixon, and we were pretty much tied towards the top of the leaderboard, and everyone had Cup, so he was kind of a non-factor. Got that early Higgins TD. Unfortunately, Mixon threw that pass, so I was a little bit tilted by that a little bit. But going into halftime, it was we were basically all tied up. I think they all had about the same number of points. And the funny thing was, we watched the halftime show. We were up putting my daughter to bed after the halftime show. And, I didn't even see the Higgins, the second Higgins touchdown. I figured I was going to get back for the start of the second half. But, walking down the stairs and putting her to bed, and I was on commercial break. I checked my phone, and I just have a text from my brother saying, let's fucking go. And I checked hopefully I can I'm sorry. Hopefully I can curse on the show, but
it's an R-rated show.
We'll find out. We're gonna find out. It's fine.
Okay. But yeah, just check my phone, check the scores app, and it said 75-yard touchdown for T Higgins. So yeah, that was pretty much it. Just had to sweat it out for the last, I guess, an hour and a half. But yeah, ended up coming through.
Bonky, I got to tell you, if Tristan, Craig's brother Tristan, highly motivated individual, and that would be, any other quote from Tristan would be inauthentic. And when Craig left me that day at our draft to go home to watch the game, there was something about his demeanor. There was something he wanted to tell me, but he wouldn't let it out. He had this look on his face. I said, well, you got to go. And he said, okay, yeah, I'm gone. And I was so thrilled to get the call on Monday telling me about the results. So it was great. So congratulations, buddy.
All right. So Craig, question from the chat room here from the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. He wants to know, and I understand you'll probably give us a little coach speak on this answer, considering this helped you win $100,000. Was that offensive pass interference on T. Higgins in the Super Bowl? Was that OPI? Did you see that? And you're like, you know what? They're going to call that back. I just know it. What are your thoughts on that?
Close call. Football's, an aggressive game, calls get missed all the time. Well, yeah, in all honesty, though, that was definitely a bit lucky. But, I've been on the flip side of that a few times where the call didn't go my way. So I'll take them. I'll take them where I can get them.
I always said, and I think I said this probably about a month or so after I lost the KFFSC Dynasty League on that Najee Harris touchdown on Monday Night Football. And I was kind of upset about it. But at the same time, I know I've already benefited from stuff like that. I probably will benefit from stuff like that going forward. And I always say, Nando DeFino, if you guys know, I know Dizzle knows Nando DeFino, worked for CBS Sports for many years, and fantasy was a big wig with the FSGA. He always said, these things have a way of figuring themselves out after a while. They always seem to even out after a while, which is why I don't get upset about it anymore. And Craig, I know you're not upset about it because you're living in the lap of luxury because of it right now. You kind of already talked about how you put this team together with 5 entries in this. Did you, and specifically with the one that won, did you ever consider before kickoff of the division round, maybe I should go a different way here? Maybe I should not take AJ Brown. Maybe I should not go with Aaron Jones. Was there any second guessing done on this team that almost proved to be disastrous for you here?
Yeah, not really. I guess the one thing I will say is that from the Tennessee-Cincinnati game, I was typically either, taking a running back and a wide receiver, just saying, okay, I'm either going to take Derrick Henry playing a Tennessee win and then taking a Cincinnati receiver, or vice versa, going with Mixon and then with AJ Brown. But no, I mean, I guess I'd already filled my running back spots with Jones and Fournette. So I was really set on playing the wide receivers. I guess it really did come down to Chase versus Higgins. Really glad I went with Higgins, obviously. And, even beyond that, like the lineups I was up against, I think there was 4 identical lineups that all had identical to mine, except they all had Chase. So, if I would have picked Chase, I was really only giving myself a chance to win $20,000. I couldn't actually win the top prize. So,
if you had eaten the chalk, as you said.
Exactly. So I had to, it really came down to, I think I had to differentiate myself a little bit with, on this specific team. So I went with Higgins there. So obviously very glad I did that.
I will say too, in the FFPC discussion before the Super Bowl, just sort of like an online Slack conversation we're having with Dave and with Alex and Chris Lambert and Mike Petrup and all of us. And Alex was the only guy who said, when we're talking about, well, who are the difference makers going to be, obviously Kupp wasn't going to factor in there because everybody had Kupp, but Mixon was brought up, Chase brought up. Alex is the only guy who said, T. Higgins could play a factor in this game today. And sure enough, he absolutely did with you.
Alex knows.
Yeah.
Hey, look, okay, Craig Campbell, your victory lap now comes to conclusion. We got to get some real work out of you because we're drafting. You're drafted on Super Bowl Sunday. Balky is drafted. KFFSC is open for business. FFPC, I'm drafting on a daily basis in the slow drafts. Elijah Mitchell, I'm targeting him everywhere. I love this ball player. Have drafted him last year prior to all the hoopla. Now he's on a roster with Deebo Samuel. You mentioned Deebo Samuel as part of your $100,000 win. Deebo Samuel is talked about as a player that's going to usurp some of those carries out of the backfield, a backfield that the head coach says he wants carrying the ball 500 times a year. So I am going to point out that Deebo Samuel, even though it was prolific and even though he didn't get started to half the year in, never in a single game carried the ball for double digits. He was prolific with touchdowns, 8 rushing touchdowns. But I think you get my drift. What I'm asking you, with all those backs out there, is Elijah Mitchell, who Balky will give us the Mojo's numbers on where he is going in the draft right now. But is Elijah Mitchell a guy that you're going to target? And can you live with a Samuel, Mitchell? Where does Mostert come into the equation, if at all? What's your take on these 49ers as we move into 2022?
Yeah, I think I'm in on Mitchell. I guess from looking at his recent ADP, I mean, he's going in I believe almost in the 6th round now. So I think he really does fit like if you want to go wide receiver heavy early, being a running back pick you can make after filling out, those wide receiver picks. And just him specifically, it just seemed like, Shanahan really, he really loved the guy. Like, Sermon didn't even see the field. I think Mitchell was like banged up or questionable for multiple games, and like he just throws him out there and gives him all the work. So it seems like he really loves him. And I guess the one concern that Mostert coming back is a little bit of a concern, but that guy can't really seem to stay on the field, and going to be 30 years old. So I think to me, I think Mitchell is a good pick in the 6th round.
It's weird because if you look at his ADP in the 12 team, best balls, slims, what have you, the closed leagues, he actually is plummeting to, well, not plummeting, but he's going in the late 5th, early 6th round. But in the never too early best ball tournament, he's going almost at that 4 or 5 turn. And I don't want to say there's sharkier players drafting in the best ball tournament, but there's a different type of player drafting in that. So it's interesting that he is, I call it the Bible Belt of draft picks there, because it's Ezekiel Elliott, Elijah Mitchell, and then Elijah Moore. So you got a little Bible Belt of ease going on in there with the biblical names at the 4 or 5 turn. So that's interesting there. Another running back, Joe Mixon. We're going to talk about him number 1 here because you own him on a couple of your dynasty FFPC squads, Craig. And 201 is where he's going in the never too early tournament as running back 7. He's going right after Najee Harris and Dalvin Cook, right in front of Javonte Williams, okay, which we'll get back to in a little bit as well. How likely, if you had that 112 pick where you have the 112, 201, how likely would you be to use one of those picks on Joe Mixon there?
Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't done a whole lot of draft. Actually, the only draft I've done so far is Farrell's draft. So I haven't been in this spot before, but I don't know. I think he's probably a pretty solid pick there, but I'm probably not going to be targeting him. To me, there was just a little bit too much of Samaje Perine involvement in the passing game that kind of wore off a little bit once the playoffs started. But you saw the final possession of the Super Bowl. They had Perine in there. They didn't have Mixon in there. So to take a running back that high, I really want him to be the true workhorse, and I'm not sure that that's going to be the situation for Mixon. So I'm probably taking, his ADP is probably not too far off from what it should be, but I'm probably going to be taking those guys you mentioned over him, Najee or Dalvin Cook or Javonte over him.
I can see that. Here's a receiver that is going way, way down the list. But if what were to happen, what Balky and I started the show talking about is potential landing spots for Aaron Rodgers outside of Green Bay. If Campbell, if Aaron Rodgers was to somehow land in Denver, how high are you going to draft Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton with 58 catches last year? We know he can catch the ball. A paltry 2 touchdowns. If there's no new quarterback signed in Denver, is he a guy that you just mark off your list?
I don't think so. Obviously, if Rodgers comes to town, he's going to skyrocket. To me, the offense can't be any worse than it was last year. I guess, it just wasn't. It was not extremely unfriendly to pass catchers. Just there was no one playable on that team at all through most of the season. So I tend to give Sutton a pass there. He's shown that he can. Obviously he started off the year great. He's had great seasons in the past. So I would tend to think he should be a target, and just assuming things turn around at least to a certain degree.
I think most people are drafting Sutton based on the thinking that Rodgers will not be there. So the ADP, I think, reflects that wide receiver 43 at the 9-12. Craig, I'm totally with Craig on this. He is going to go way up if Rodgers does end up in Denver. Guys, Craig, let me throw this to you. If Rodgers goes to Denver, who is the biggest beneficiary? Is it simply a case of a rising tide raises all ships there? Or is there somebody specifically in that Broncos offense, be it Williams or Gordon or Fant or Judy or Hamler or Tim Patrick or Cortland Sutton? Is there any one guy that you think has, benefits most from Rodgers going there?
That's a great question. I don't know. It'll be interesting for Rodgers to go there because, Rodgers he's always had his one guy, whether it be Javonte or Greg Jennings or Jordy Nelson in the past. It's never been this kind of spread out offense where you have multiple great options. So is he going to pick, is Judy going to be the guy? And then everyone else kind of gets left with scraps. I think that's going to be a really interesting situation. I mean, I would probably say Judy would, I don't know. I'm thinking Judy's probably going to be the top ADP pick out of all those guys, and maybe the most likely, but I don't know. I'm kind of avoiding the question, but that's tough for me to answer.
Well, and maybe the fact that it is tough to answer, Craig, maybe that just means that there isn't one single beneficiary. Maybe it just means that everybody just gets boosted up a little bit and nobody gets boosted up a lot. Now, if we apply the whole single receiver scenario to Rodgers that he's had throughout his career, I think we can probably narrow it down then, especially because, he had the 1 year with Jermichael Finley that was pretty good, but he's typically over the course, the breadth of his career, never really focused on the tight end. You can make the case he's never really had a stud tight end to throw to either. And maybe Noah Fant would represent the best tight end he's ever had. So I guess we don't know exactly. But we go by the one receiver scenario, it's either Sutton or Judy, and you could probably not bump up Patrick and Hamler and those running backs up your draft boards too much. Sutton and Judy would be the guys to go with there. Let's get to a couple of emails here we have for you, Craig. The first one comes from Dylan in Charlotte. Hi, Craig. How do you feel about Saquon Barkley in the early third round this season? Nice work in the playoff challenge. That is Dylan in Charlotte. We've heard a lot of news about Saquon Barkley lately, about how he could be traded. The new GM there said that he wouldn't rule that out. And man, we saw so much talent with him coming in from Penn State. And then obviously the injury was devastating, and playing on that Giants team has been kind of devastating as well. But now he's not a first-round pick. Now he's an early third-round pick. Craig Campbell, what do you do with Saquon Barkley in the early third?
That sounds like a gamble I'd probably want to make at that point. I mean, the guy, obviously coming off some injuries, some bad seasons, but when he's healthy, I think he's still a top back in the league. And he's also, obviously has the receiving skills that you want to have. So I don't know. I haven't put a lot of thought to that one, but I think I'd still be a buyer at that price.
Farrell, go ahead, Farrell.
I'm going to go back to the victory lap, Balky, unless you have a follow-up there.
I was going to ask you if you'd be wanting to be in business with Barkley in the early third.
Me? No, I don't think so. But, Craig Campbell said yes, so now I'm going to reevaluate.
Well, remember, Craig Campbell has $100,000 that he can take.
I reevaluate based on what I hear on the show, Balky. So I'm going to go back and study that. I was already moving off Saquon, and I'm going to go back to the victory lap because I'm not finished with talking about Craig and winning the $100,000 and what a great player he is. And T. Higgins, Craig. Alex was correct. Alex K. He can always give you the player that you and Alex got to get you guys in the same room. So Higgins, he's going in the middle of the third round. Is that a little high for either the contest, the slim contest, the best ball slims, the current redrafts? It feels high to me. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of a unique situation. I think he's a rock solid pick there. I guess a floor pick, I guess, because he's got a really solid situation there, but he obviously has Chase in front of him. You're never going to get, and without an injury, you're not going to get this kind of Cooper Kupp sort of ascension from the third round to being a first round pick. But at the same time, you look at the receivers that are going around him, like DK Metcalf and Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, they all have a lot of red flags on them, either by getting older or QB concerns. And, Higgins, doesn't really have any of that. He has very good situation, still an ascending player going only into his third year. So, it's tough. I think I would take DK Metcalf over T Higgins, just because I think he can, like, that. He has that potential of becoming like a first round pick and being the alpha there. But, if you're looking for a safe pick, I think he's the one you want from that group.
I'm going to throw it back as our good friend Cecil Lammy from the Football Guys Audible podcast says, it is a Broncos show. Tonight we've been kind of a Broncos show as well. We're going to keep it on that with a Javonte Williams question from Mike in Roswell, Georgia. What's up, Craig? If the Broncos are going to bring back Melvin Gordon this year, does that take enough of the shine off Javonte Williams that you'll look for someone else at his ADP? We already mentioned it. By the way, thank you for the email. We already mentioned his ADP earlier in the program. To remind everybody, Javonte Williams is currently the running back 8, and he is going at the 203. The Broncos have already said that they'd like to bring Melvin Gordon back to 2022. You could also look at this the flip side and say, well, the fact that Gordon's there, maybe that keeps Javonte Williams healthy and on the field longer. A lot of different ways to look at this, Craig. How do you see Javonte Williams with Melvin Gordon this year? Is he a guy that you want to target in the early second?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they bring back Melvin, I have to think his ADP drops at least around maybe. I'm not sure. Like, that seems like it seemed like last year everyone was kind of waiting for Javonte Williams to be the guy, but that just never happened. They never seemed like they wanted to just make him the guy. It was always, a split backfield. So, yeah, I think I would have to pass at that high ADP if they bring Melvin back. But at the same time, he's obviously an ascending player. Melvin is probably trending towards less work. But I'd probably
not ascending, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'd probably have to knock him down a little bit if they decided to do that.
Craig Farrell has one last question, but before we get to that, I have one last question for you. $100,000. It's a large chunk of change. And one of my favorite questions asked on the show, and we get these big 6-figure winners on, what are you going to do with the cash? Do you have any plans? Are you just simply investing it? Are you going to maybe expand your territory a little bit this year with fantasy football? What are your thoughts? Yes, we know, Farrell. What are your thoughts on your plans to do what are your plans with all that cash?
Yep. So I guess I was already kind of remodeling a room in my basement into there it is. Into a workout room. So reflooring it, getting a bunch of new workout equipment, maybe putting like a sauna in there or something that. Just really doing it big. I wasn't going to do it that big before this, but now that I have this extra change, I'll probably make it like super nice, I guess.
That's awesome.
And then obviously going to Vegas for FFPC in September. Going to play some nice golf courses up there, nice restaurants, probably gamble entirely too much. And yeah, just do a big weekend.
That's fantastic. Do you notice how the Kentucky players refer to $100,000, Balky, as a nice piece of change? You just love that expectation of success. Hey, we do have nothing but high expectations for you, Craig Campbell. What is a player in the draft boards, on the draft boards, a player that we haven't talked about yet tonight, but we should be talking about him because he is a great selection at this point? And then is there anyone that you are just avoiding like the plague as you roll into these springtime drafts in the KFFSC and FFPC?
Yeah, so I was taking a look at the ADPs before answering this question, and I saw like two guys that I wanted to compare, both going at the top of the 6th round. You got Hunter Renfrow and Michael Pittman. Okay. And if you're giving me that choice, I'm taking Pittman 100 times out of 100 over Renfrow.
Wow.
It feels like Renfrow, you're just going for the floor play there. There's not too much upside with him. Likely had his best season. I think Waller coming back is likely going to take a lot of his volume away. And then, Pittman going at basically the same spot from what I looked at. You know, I think he has a lot more upside with the same sort of floor, ascending. Again, I keep saying that ascending player in that offense that could turn into something of maybe like a Keenan Allen type player in that offense. You know, and you know, if they start maybe going a little less run first, you're looking at a lot more volume and maybe some more touchdowns if Jonathan Taylor decides to give anything to Pittman. But yeah, that's just kind of a ADP comparison I thought that was interesting just from looking at it.
Let me follow that up, Craig. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like when you say Pittman over Renfro there, you don't seem concerned about either Carson Wentz or whoever the quarterback is going to be in Indianapolis. Why do you think that Pittman's just the type of receiver that, you know, is going to be a PPR guy? He's going to get a big target share in that offense, regardless of the quarterback. So is that why the Wentz thing doesn't affect you at all there?
Yeah, it's obviously a risk, but you know, I just think, you know, I think Pittman's is a really good player, and they don't really have a whole lot of target competition with, you know, Hilton aging out, and I can't even really think of anyone else.
Paris Campbell already hurt, probably.
Yeah,
I'm just guessing.
Yeah, so I don't know. You know, I guess I want to say that they'll figure it out. They'll be able to support at least their number one receiver, regardless of who the quarterback is. But you know, obviously, hopefully, it doesn't turn into a Broncos situation.
Oh, gosh.
Makes sense to me, man. Craig, listen, so awesome to have you on to talk about this big 6-figure grand prize. Congratulations. By the way, the Dizzle chiming in from the chat room. He says, get a Peloton Bike Plus. And I know he loves his Pelotons, but get the Peloton Bike Plus, put it in that workout room. You get the sauna right in there as well, and you'll be all set. You'll be wowing everybody every time you step out of your workout room. When we see you at KFFSC in Louisville, when we see you at Las Vegas at the FFPC, it's going to be a lot of fun. Congratulations again. Thank you for carving out time on your Friday night for us. We certainly appreciate it. Don't be a stranger, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thanks, Balky. Thanks, Farrell. Talk to you guys later.
Craig Campbell, ladies and gentlemen, the winner, $100,000 grand prize. By the way, so a bit of housekeeping here, and I know we're over the hour, and I do apologize. Connor O'Driscoll was going to be our guest today. He actually messaged me yesterday. He's pretty under the weather, and he said he wouldn't have the voice to do the show, so we rescheduled him. And I was like, man, we need a guest, and it's Thursday night. I'm putting my kids to bed. I shot an email to Craig. I'm like, hey, man, I wanted to have you on anyway because you won this $100K, but I know short notice. Could you do the show tomorrow? 4 minutes later, I get an email. Hey, I'd love to. Happy to hop on. It's the Louisville royalty. It's the KFFSC royalty that is so great. We love showcasing it on this program each and every week whenever we can. So with apologies to all our emailers, I promise you we will get to you next week. If you're drafting right now, go with your gut, as I always say. Farrell, great having you on. Follow you on Twitter at jfarrellelliott at KFFSC, and check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at kffsc.com. Right now, the Draft Masters are going on. The Combine Classic is about 8 days away, I think. So make sure you're registering for that. And then, of course, we're about 6 weeks away, as we said, to the Run to Daylight Sweet 16 Championship. That's coming up as well. Can't wait for that. And I know you got a busy weekend. You got to get back to Indy. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll do this again next Friday, dude.
I'll see you then, Buck.
Thank you. Farrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, the commissioner, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, joining me on the program tonight. And now we're Louisville-less for the remainder of the program tonight as I close things out. I want to thank Craig Campbell, Farrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you for watching tonight or streaming it later, what have you. As I mentioned, we will be back next Friday at 10/9 Central. The 2021 FFPC Best Ball Tournament 100K champ, Connor O'Driscoll, as long as he's healthy, will be joining us on this program next week, so can't wait to talk to him. And as a reminder, to tide you over until we wow you again with this great YouTube channel, dozens of Dynasty Orphans available, myffpc.com/dynasty for sale. A lot of good deals on those. Make sure you're scooping those up They are going fast, so make sure that you're getting those for sure. The inaugural Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, that is filling up fast as well. We have drafts going on with the 30-second clock, the 60-second clock, 2-hour clock, and 6-hour clock as well. So something for everybody there. It is a best ball slim format, expanded to 20 rounds this year as opposed to 18. That affects a lot of people. And if you want to know how that's affecting high volume drafters like Todd Burrows at Best Ball NFL, rotoviz.com/podcast is where to check him out. You can also stay on this YouTube channel. His video podcast with me, the High Stakes Lowdown, is up on there right now. You can watch that. A lot of great stuff on the advance rates for the best ball tournament last year. And remember, Todd made it to championship week. He was one of the championship 12. Came up a little bit short, but it is a 1-week championship, so anything can happen. So make sure you're checking that out. The slow live sit and go drafts with the closed 12-team leagues, with the Terminator format, the varsity format, VPs, slims, regular 28-round best balls, all available at myffpc.com. The Run to Daylight, as I pointed out, kffsc.com. That's open right now. And don't forget to register for $1 million in the FFPC main event this year. You can win that. We're going to have an FFPC millionaire coming up in early January. That's going to be exciting as well. The last thing I will say before I sign off tonight, my kids love YouTube. The YouTube kids, I don't let them on the regular YouTube. But I told them that, Dad's Friday night show is now on YouTube, and they're thrilled. They love it. And I said that I would give them a shout out tonight before I sign off. They'll want to watch this portion of it tomorrow. So my son just wanted to say, for me to say hi, Lucas. So hello, Lucas. And then my daughter wanted me to say hello, Emma. So hello, Emma. And she also wanted to give out a shout out to her pet hamster, Nugget the Great. So hello, Nugget the Great. And that will conclude our broadcast tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching.